you guys all so much for joining today. I know, since obviously several of you are in the Cleveland area, we're obviously experiencing a severe thunderstorm. So there's a slight chance that myself or several others may lose power at one point in time. If you can, just feel free to join back. And this is the advantage to having some people out of town on the call. I have as a backup Steph, who is ready to present just in case I do lose power and I have to call back in. So we are prepared for different scenarios. So give me one moment and I will start sharing my screen. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Affirmative.
All right, fantastic. All right, so we have a lot to cover and we're really excited because it's our first month in which that we're going to start sharing educational topics. So we want to make sure we allow as much time as possible for some of more of the open discussion items, as well as that educational topic. So with that being said, so just want to welcome everyone. I know we have a few new people. So who on the line is either new to Wild Ones or this is their first time joining a meeting? Can I get a show of hands? Oh,
That's me.
I see, was Janice, I think I saw. Okay. Oh, Bailey. Okay. Great. So fantastic. All right. So for those of you that are not familiar with Wild Ones or are new to Wild Ones, our mission is promote environmentally sound landscaping practices to preserve biodiversity through the preservation, restoration, and establishment of native plant communities. And in one of our last meetings, we just talked about how we're really trying to, since we're a newer chapter, we're really trying to establish our community. And as a part of that, we're really excited. We're starting to plan out 2023 goals. Steph just sent out a survey to the group, so I hope everyone was able to fill that out, and we're excited to share some of the results from that. So, but before we dive into all those details, introductions. So for our new people on the line, who would like to introduce themselves first? Don't be shy.
Hi.
Hi, is that Bailey?
Hi, this is Bailey.
Hi, Bailey.
Hi, my name is Bailey Kim. I live in Brooklyn Heights. It's a small village. If you're not aware, we are right in between like Parma and Independence. This is my first time meeting with you guys. I actually saw your posts in the Wild Monarchs of Ohio group. So I just wanted to come in and see what you guys are about.
Well, welcome. Well, we're really excited to have you. And, obviously, we have a lot to cover, but please, if you can stay on to the end, we'd love to have further discussion with you. And if for some reason you do need to leave early, because I know this is a longer meeting, please do not hesitate to send us an email or message.
Okay.
And we can reach back out to you, or if you want to quickly message us your information and we can just reach out to you that way as well.
Okay, great. Thanks.
All right. All right. Who else wants to go?
That's me.
Hi,
Sorry, I think I don't know if I hit mute earlier and I yelled at my kid for passing something across the door. I'm Janice. I'm in Stowe down in Summit County. I've kind of been following Wild Ones for a little bit. So kind of testing the waters on joining a meeting and all that. I know I've done a few of the free webinars in the past. I'm a landscape designer in Akron, so and I love plants, so this was right up my alley. So just trying to connect with people, like-minded people in the community. So glad to be here.
Great. Excited to have you. Thank you. All right.
Hi, I'm Diane.
Hi, Diane.
Yeah, I'm from Strongsville and I'm an avid gardener, have been my whole life, and just found out about your group. I don't know if it was from the the native plant website or where it was, but anyway, it looked very interesting. So I thought I'd hop in and see what your meetings are all about.
Great, thank you. All right, who else is new?
I'm new too, Kate Chapel. I live in Aurora, but I work in Cleveland around the Euclid Creek watershed, and I'm always doing something with native plants. So excited to meet you guys.
Okay, great. Pleasure to have you. All right, do we have anybody else new? Or the first time in one of our meetings? Shelley, were you able to join? I think we have a new person, but they might still be joining, so give it just one moment. All right, well, worst case scenario, if more people join or that are new, okay, so no microphone. Okay, well, welcome, Shelley. I believe this is one of her first meetings as well. So, because I think we have so many new members or potential new members, Stephanie, do you want to revisit? Do you need anything specifically from these individuals that I didn't check with you ahead of time, so.
I don't think so. I owe Shelley an email back, and I just need to check my schedule to make sure we can make something work for our conversation next week. But other than that, I don't think so.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you. I'm so excited to have so many new members or potential new members and people just joining us for the first time. So like I said, please, if you can, stay on to the end, but if you're not able to, please don't hesitate to reach out to us with your contact information. We're happy to have further conversations with you because this is a jam-packed agenda. All right, so let me go back to sharing my screen. All right. So jumping over to chapter updates. So for those that are not aware, we just had our first event of the year, and that was a seed and service event kindly hosted by Ray. He was a wonderful host, and we, for roughly about 3 hours this last Sunday, we packed 20 species of native perennials into envelopes. And he was kind enough to provide us an educational sheet, as well as it was really just a great social event. So it was very exciting. Ray, is there anything you'd like to add with regards to that event?
Well, people actually stayed after 5 o'clock and made sure that they used every last envelope that I had available for packing. It was just a wonderful spirit of participation. Yeah, it's one thing to get a task completed or at least well on its way, but it was just so much fun to meet so many people. And here in northern Lorain County, we had one family of 5 from Akron and another individual from Akron, and of course Stephanie came in from Central Ohio, and so it was really a great coming together from many different parts. And yeah, I was really tickled at the energy that came into my house last Sunday.
Well, thank you again, for Ray, for hosting, or for those on the line that joined us. Thank you guys so much, and we're really looking forward to having similar events in the future. Some other general chapter updates that we have is leadership right now is in the process of completing the state of the chapter and financial reports, which is due into national by the end of this month. The first stage of this was completed at the end of December, and leadership, Steph, Danielle, myself are in the weeds. We're looking to finish the next step by hopefully tomorrow if everything goes well, so that we can wrap this up by the end of this month. So with that being said, obviously between prepping for this meeting, the event this past weekend, as well as the state of the chapter, we've been probably much busier than normal on top of the relaunch. So I apologize if there's been some delays in getting back to some individuals, but we're really excited to move past this part and be able to really start working on 2023 goals. And speaking of which, in talking with our leadership as well as looking at our overall needs of the chapter, some of the things that we're looking for help for sooner than later involves the treasurer position. This is really a key position within the chapter that allows us to engage and create other initiatives and projects that we would be limited without. So without a treasurer right now, we cannot hold a financial account. So that really severely limits us on anything from fundraising to other types of activities that would require a treasurer resource. So if you or anybody that you know of has experience in bookkeeping or accounting, please send them our way. We really could use that assistance. With that being said, obviously, if we do not have this position, we will still move forward. It will just limit a few of the actions that we can do as a chapter. Some other things that we're could use assistance in: project management. We have a lot of exciting ideas from the group that we'd love to implement. Fortunately, I'm the only project manager and I can only be in so many places. So if anybody has that type of experience, it would be really appreciated. Same thing with social media and or website development, marketing and communication, potential and new member welcoming outreach. This person would, for that specific piece, would be somebody that helps assist Stephanie. So we've already had at least one new member join us this past month, and obviously we have several new potentials. So obviously, as we continue to create more awareness of our chapter and our mission, we do expect this to become a busier and busier position. So, the more the merrier when it comes to these items. And the other thing is, as we talked about in our last meeting, we are looking to launch our learning committee. And really at the heart of our mission really lays, is part of the education piece of this. So anybody that's willing to raise their hand, with the exception of the treasurer position, none of these are officer positions. These are just things we're looking for help in. So when I say that, I mean, even if you can just give a couple hours a month, that is something that is helpful to us. So if you're interested in that, please don't hesitate to reach out. Obviously, if for those of you who have already filled out the survey and has raised your hand, Steph will be working around, obviously, one at a time. But if there's something you specifically want to help with sooner than later, please send us an email, and in the title, put volunteer or something along those lines, and just state that. So based off of what it is you're looking to volunteer for, Steph, or perhaps somebody else such as myself, will reach back out to you. Any questions there before I move on? Okay, obviously we'll need help in other ways as well. These are just some of the early pieces we've identified, so that way we can be successful moving forward. Next is Facebook and our weekend challenge. So for those of you who've been following us for a little while, we relaunched our Facebook page, and based off of the survey's results that Stephanie accumulated, 87% of our membership utilize Facebook on a regular basis. And thus, this will be one of our main focuses in making sure we provide you the latest and greatest information, followed then by email, Instagram, and our website. So with that being said, our Facebook page is fully operational. In the last 28 days, we have 34 posts and 96 followers. So what we're looking for help from you guys is, since we're trying to rebuild our followers, take a moment either tonight or over the weekend, and if you know of any friends or family members that might be interested in our mission, or just in general learning more about native plants, please send them an invite through Facebook if you use Facebook. For those not familiar with how to do that, under the cover page on our Facebook page, there's 3 dots under that main photo, and then there's an option to invite friends. This is something that we just ask. Obviously, no obligation at all, but this just helps communicate our mission and helps others learn more about us and that mission. So For those of you that have a lot of colleagues, friends, family members that are interested in this topic and decide to do a massive invite, make sure it's no more than 50, because otherwise Facebook does tend to glitch out. I'm expecting, more onesie twosies, maybe a handful of people, but I do know a few of you are very well established in the native plant community, and don't want Facebook to glitch out on you. All right, and then next item. Welcome, Ray. Ray has been kind enough to volunteer as our general board member. So Ray, would you like to introduce yourself and provide a little bit of background?
Okay. I'm a retired science teacher. I taught in Elyria, and in my retirement a few years ago, I decided to do more with native plants than just transitioning my own yard. I became certified as a master rain gardener and said, oh, this is pretty cool. I'll bet there's a lot of people that could use some help with establishing a rain garden and using native plants. So I formed a nonprofit to champion that effort. So I'm Webfoot Designs, and I do landscape design and help people. I enable people to do the kinds of things I've done, transitioning into native plants, and I promote education and outreach for native plants as well. So here I am in retirement and working every day at something or other that has to do with pollinators and native plants.
Great. Well, thank you, Ray, so much for joining our team. We're really excited to work with you, and I already appreciate how you've already volunteered and helped organize the event and whatnot. So thank you. All right. So next, I'm sure everyone's excited to hear all from Stephanie about the chapter survey results.
I'm so excited. So first I want to thank everyone for participating in the survey. We did send out a couple different invitations over a couple weeks to collect some data. So thank you for everyone who responded. We did get a total of 16 responses. Jess, that does not include all the test responses that you provided when I was building the survey. So this is all real data. So I, just wanted to make sure that we get that call out. And what was really impressive to me was that 20%, almost 20% of our respondents were people who are not currently members of Wild Ones. So they were interested in learning more about Wild Ones. And what was also really fun for me to see is that the interests of those non-members, there's a ton of overlap with the interests of our existing members. So that was very exciting because I was able to do a little bit of recruitment there, sent out some invitational emails to those non-members and said, hey, would you like to learn more? So hopefully we'll get some more members joining our chapter here shortly. Yeah, Jess, if we could go ahead and move to the next slide. This was also really fun for me to see is just how diverse the group's experience is with native plant gardening. So a quarter of our members are new to native plant gardening. And I will fully admit that includes me. While about 2/3 of our members are experienced with native plant gardening, and that includes both people who said they were experienced and people who are working at that expert or professional level in native plant gardening. So this is awesome because this to me indicates that there's a lot of opportunities for us to learn from and also share with our chapter members. So that's very exciting to see. Jess, if we could move to the next slide. Awesome. So if you took the survey, you'll know that we had some questions in there about, what do you want to get out of your chapter membership this year? What kind of stuff do you want to learn about? What sort of events or activities would you like to see the chapter do? And so just looking over those open-ended responses, there were 3 major themes that came out of those responses when we asked you about, what do you want to get out of your chapter membership this year? I will quote this because it was probably my favorite thing in the whole survey, was you're interested in community and specifically you want to meet, and I quote, like-minded native plant nerds. So that was fantastic to see. There's a lot of discussion there about being able to talk to other people, see what other people are doing, see their gardens, just talk about plants. I know when we did the seed event this past Sunday, Ray and I ended up spending a few minutes talking about the difference between common milkweed and prairie milkweed and native bug species. So that was really fun. And that is exactly what I want to get out of my membership. And apparently some of you also agree. You also want to make an impact. You're not just interested in that social aspect. You also want to make an impact in Northeast Ohio through outreach, education, and partnership with local governments, institutions, and other organizations to promote the importance of native plants and biodiversity. So we love to see that because we definitely want to make that happen through some of the projects that we're thinking about and talking about for this year. So that was also really good to see. And then education, you want to learn about gardening with native plants. This shouldn't be a surprise. And so I think as we are kind of looking at, what are we going to do in terms of educational programming in 2023, we've got a lot of ideas that we can talk about there. Jess, if we could move to the next slide. Thank you. Speaking of those educational topics, what do you want to see covered in 2023? 2 main themes that came out of this. You want to learn about establishing and maintaining native plant gardens, and you want to learn more about biodiversity and ecological resilience. In terms of establishing and maintaining native plant gardens, that's everything from plant selection, site selection, designing your native plant garden. How do you start native plants from seed? How do you propagate native plants? And then even getting into some of the nitty-gritty about garden maintenance and garden tool maintenance, which I think is also going to be really fun. In terms of biodiversity and ecological resilience, you're interested in learning more about rain gardens. So Ray, we may need to call on you for that. Invasive species identification, how you can support pollinators and other native plant species, and then also just learning more about those life cycles and specialized relationships that exist between native plants, native species, and native biomes. So really cool stuff. I'm personally very excited to learn about all of these things. Jess, if we could move to the next slide. Awesome. And then in terms of what activities or events would you like to see the chapter participate in, or would you like to see the chapter organize in 2023? Some interesting, really diverse ideas coming out of this. So this was really cool to see. Field trips. You're really interested in seeing native garden tours of successful and established native gardens. There was some discussion of, hey, it'd be really cool to go see each other's native plant gardens, if people are comfortable sharing. You want to do some nursery tours, some hikes or some walks in preserved and restored areas, so we can kind of see what that looks like, not just in our individual backyards, but also in sort of a wider sort of, maybe like go find some restored prairie, or see what our natural parks are doing. So opportunities for us to kind of get out and get moving out there in those native plant environments as well. You'd like to see some chapter projects. So some specific call outs were around, could we do some invasive species removal? Could we participate in a pathway project? Could we adopt a library and do a native garden installation for an institution like a library? You want to take part in community events, things like Pollinator Week got some specific call outs. And then you'd also like to see our representation and our outreach at community events. So that could be as simple as just tabling at some community events and just, sharing with the community that we're here and what our mission is and, how we want to get people involved. And then finally, this should not be a surprise, you want to get some plants. So this could be plant sales, some plant and seed swaps, some seed harvesting, learning maybe about seed harvesting so we can get those plants out there. And like I said, I think some of us are a bunch of native plant nerds and we just want to swap seeds so we can get as many species as possible. I will, in the self-interested call out right now, I will say I'm very interested in getting some pawpaw seeds. If anyone happens to know a good source, I'd really like to plant some pawpaw next to my black walnut trees. I think it'd be a really good sort of native food forest thing that I'm going for in my front lawn. So just a call out, if anyone knows a good source, would love to hear about it.
If you
Right.
find one, share.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we'll definitely share that resource. All right, Jess, we're going to move to the last slide here. So what are the next steps for us coming out of this survey? So thanks to your responses, we are going to be able to kind of set a strategic sort of plan for 2023 for our chapter. And specifically when it comes to education, the Learning Committee is going to be hosting regular virtual meetings starting in February. We're still working out some details on the specific date, but when we send out the next chapter update, we'll share that information with you. And then we will also, based on those survey results, we're going to start developing a learning agenda for 2023. So some of those educational topics will be presented in these monthly chapter meetings, but then we'll also have separately scheduled educational events. So please stay tuned for that. In terms of those events and projects that we talked about, your leadership here is going to explore some options for participating in events and organizing projects in 2023. But like Jess said earlier, you know, the more help we can get, the better. So if you're interested in seeing a particular project or event happen, you know, let us know and we'd love to get you involved, love to get you to help us make that happen. So I'm so excited after seeing the results of the survey to see how enthusiastic you guys are, how engaged you are with native plants as a topic, and what you want to learn about. I think there's going to be some awesome stuff happening this year. So yeah, that is the results coming out of our chapter survey. And this one went so well. I think we should do this every year to kind of set the path for, you know, what does the chapter want to do as we continue to grow and evolve. Jess, I'll hand it back over to you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Steph. So before we dive into one of our discussion items specifically with regards to events, any questions for Stephanie? All right. Take silence is good. Steph, Danielle, keep me honest, because remember, I will not be able to look at the chat's comment section since I'm sharing my screen with regards to the slide. So if there is something that does pop up there, please do not hesitate to let me know.
Will do.
All right. So with regards to events, as we mentioned in our last meeting, we're really aiming for Earth Day to be our first big event. So I wanted to open up to the group because I know several of you are well established within the community, have been around a while, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on what are some of the biggest, best Earth Day events going around town in 2023 that might be something for us to consider participating in. So open discussion time, guys. Want to hear your thoughts. Don't everyone speak at once.
I know Lake Metro Parks always has a festival at Penitentiary Glen.
Okay. Thank you. Any other thoughts, experiences?
Jess, we've got Shelly dropping in the chat to say Medina County Earth Day Festival. Am I pronouncing that correctly? It is Medina. Okay, thank you. I'm getting a couple nods in the videos there. Yeah, so Earth Day Festival, that's an option as well.
Any other thoughts and ideas?
Well, I mentioned before that last year I was at the zoo, the Cleveland Metro Park Zoo for Earth Day, and I came away not wanting to do it again, at least not under the same circumstances. It's wonderful to think, oh, I'm going to be at an event, there's going to be 10,000 people or more, and I'm going to get to table and you know, I'll be talking to people all day long, and that just wasn't the case. And then they had a drum line playing for hours right next to us and nobody could talk anyhow. So it's hard to know what you're going to get until you actually do it, unless, you know, if you know what Penitentiary Glen is going to be like, then it's a real plus to know what it's going to be ahead of time and what to expect, and use that to make the best use of your resources.
No, that's great feedback, right? That's good things to be aware of. So even if it's negative experiences, let us know about it, but not only because of just as awareness for the event, but also, you know, as we you know, delve into working with some of these other communities or organizations for awareness perspective. So, you know, I love in the future to potentially, to your point, Ray, you know, partner with the zoo on something, just because it's just such a great organization. But to your point, you know, we want to make sure we are impactful and aware of some of those situations and are not caught in those situations. So,
and we may have enough manpower, you know, based on the attendance tonight and the networking that we're doing, that doing more than one event on Earth Day or during Earth Week may be possible.
correct. And speaking of which, I believe there was one other event. Danielle, I thought you were mentioning that LCC might be having an event as well.
Yeah, and I think that Ray might be able to speak on that as well. It's gone on every year for the past several years, all except for maybe the worst of COVID. It used to be a huge event, very prosperous, with a lot of different partners, a lot of Metro Park partners or individual partners. But between COVID happening, we lost a ton of momentum, as well as the college has kind of rearranged things to make it a lot less easy to promote it on a large level. So I would actually like to kind of check in to see what type of progress is being made in that direction. It went from being a very large event to a very almost like community or a college community exclusively almost event. So I kind of want to see what the projections are like right now, but it is definitely something to consider. Push comes to shove.
Okay. Nope, good. All right, any other ideas before I ask a question or two of one or two of the individuals here?
I'll know a little bit more about LCC after Monday.
Okay, good to know, Ray. All right, so I apologize, I didn't catch, it might have been Josh that said this. Josh, do you know anything about the Lake Metro Park Earth Day Festival that you'd like to share with the group, or you're just aware of it?
So for Chagrin River Watershed Partners, my day job, we usually have a booth at that event. It's indoors and outdoors, mostly for kids, but it's a ton of different organizations and people come through and like take information, and like there's been games for kids, and I think they have hikes and other things set up, but I was never able to actually go out and see the things happening when I was at the table.
Okay, no, good to be aware. Shelley, you know, I know you don't have a microphone, and this actually goes for anyone else that knows about events or maybe didn't get a chance to expand upon it. If you can send us an email to our chapter email, or you can message us through our Facebook page, please go ahead and send us the information of these events, or as you hear events, because we are looking to really try to solidify what we want to do for Earth Day, because we really want to make sure this is a very impactful event. We want to do our best to market it, but also have educational material, possibly activities for kids or adults, you know, things along those lines. So we want to do our best to be able to prepare for it and be successful. Our goal if everything goes really well, is to solidify that in the next 3 to 4 weeks. But we do realize that, you know, between, I know Ray has a vacation coming up for 2 weeks plus with our leadership, also, you know, trying to do the end of year reporting and things like that, that realistically, we really might not be able to finalize that decision until end of February. So if you hear anything, you know, please send that information over, or if you have already mentioned it, if you have links to some of these event information and or contacts, please let us know. Okay. All right. Next, national updates. So don't have a lot of national updates from our last meeting. However, there was one really great one. I think some of you might have already seen the social media post that I put out there yesterday. But one of our Wild Ones members at a national level, and also a wild lawyer, Roseanne Plant, I'm probably mispronouncing it, but I appreciate that. Her last name is Plant with an E at the end of it, has developed a sample native planting ordinance. And it's a really great start for a lot of cities that have been challenged, whether it's from HOAs, those pesky weed ordinances. So take a look at this. It's really great. This is something that I could possibly see us trying to work out on a greater effort with the cities in our areas, especially ones that are more pesky than normal, to help combat those, you know, weed ordinances or the HOAs or things along those lines. And maybe even take it a step further, because it starts going into rain gardens and native trees. Because a lot of cities, I know Berea specifically has one, is a tree committee. You know, maybe make the recommendation that it's, you know, native plants, because I was looking at that list of what was approved and there were some non-natives in there, and that's one of those easy changes that can be made. So, but in addition, that was provided, this is one's been out there a little bit longer, but is a weed police webinar. So take a look at that. I think these are both great resources and something to start with, and maybe down the line, something to consider as a part of a bigger effort that we specifically focus on as a chapter. So, any questions there? All right, take silences, we're good. All right, so excited to present. Danielle, are you ready?
Ish, sure.
Ta-da! No pressure, right, Danielle? Oops. Oh, we can't hear you, Danielle. You're on mute.
I'm trying to see are you still sharing that screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So, okay. So I'm going to stop my video of me personally. All right. All right. So Danielle is going to provide us our first educational topic. Our goal, I can't always promise, but our goal is to hopefully in each of these monthly meetings have an educational topic presented. So Danielle has been kind enough to speak for this month. And the topic that was chosen was starting seeds for some obvious reasons. Obviously, we just had our Seed and Service event. There's a lot of events going around town with regards to seed swaps. Actually, annual seed swap day, I believe, is the 28th at the end of this month. Seed Bank and other organizations are having events with regards to this topic, as well as winter sowing. So we thought this would be a really great topic to share. And Danielle, it is all yours.
All right. Hi, everybody. I know I haven't talked a whole lot. That's because I'm the secretary now. So I'm really trying to focus on getting everybody's insight and input into words. But I am excited to share something very near and dear to my heart. I have been propagating native plants for almost 10 years. I've gotten pretty serious in the past maybe 3 or 4 years. And like many of you, I have something of a backyard nursery. So a lot of this is going to be kind of repeat. And for some of you, some of this information will be new, but I think there's always something to pick up for everybody. So I do want to start by saying that in terms of propagating native plant seed, your main goal is to nourish that plant in the way that nature would itself. So in a lot of ways you can use just the elements outside, or in other ways you might want to manipulate the circumstances a little bit to either get you give you a head start, maybe a higher germination rate, just so that you can have a little bit more kind of control over the situation. But I do want to mention that Ohio is a really, really neat place to get into native plants, because back in the way day, I'm talking like pre-glacial. So hardly anybody talks about pre-glacial. The continents were connected, right? So if you believe it or not, a lot of our native plants have Asian ancestry, and about half as many have European ancestry. When the glaciers happened, the plant populations really, really suffered, and they found refuge in just small little niches in the country. Some in the Midwest, some down in the Appalachians, and some further east. And what's cool about Ohio is that once the glaciers melted, those plants found that it was habitable to come up into Ohio to live and flourish. And so we have these different pathways where once the glaciers retreated, the plants kind of came, and it's Ohio where everything kind of meets. Everything is now, of course, moving to the east, seeking shelter once again in the face of climate change, but that's a conversation for another time. Having said that, though, through all of these ages of the plants having been here for so long, they have developed genetic codes to survive the different weather that Ohio experiences. And a big part of that is in their seed coat. So here there's a little diagram of a seed. This one's probably a bean, but it does show you that seeds, big or infinitesimal, have little baby embryos in them. So they actually contain little baby embryos, and that's important to know when you think of nourishing a life form. So you're beginning with a life form. It's not just when it sprouts that it becomes one. And so in order to get that life form what it needs, we have to think first of the seed coat. And so that's where pre-treatment comes in. And when we're talking about native plant propagation, this is probably one of the most important and maybe even time consuming / important parts of getting those going. So let's go ahead and flip to the next slide. It's not as pretty. If you kind of zoom in on the screen here, you'll see a couple different examples of pre-treatment. So because Ohio's winters have kind of always gone back and forth, and we'll have very, very cold winters, and then we'll have springs that kind of swing, freeze and thaw. Plants have had to develop a way to survive that without germinating at the wrong times. So they have a number of genetic coding in their seeds that we have to get through in order to get effectively water into that little embryo that you saw on the previous slide. So some seed coats are going to be super, super hard. Some of them are going to have chemical inhibitors. And some of them are going to have to experience a number of kind of onslaughts, not just the freeze thaw cycle. So some of these pre-treatments I kind of want to go over. Let's see here. So seeds generally wait for a few different kind of needs to be met. We have to have not only water, but certain soil temperature. And it's kind of amazing, actually, it's completely amazing that the plants will know when those settings are right. But a lot of it has to do with what's going on with that seed. So when we're thinking about pre-treating our seeds, a lot of it has to do with what that seed would have experienced in nature. So if you look in that top left corner, that seed, do seeds experience sandpaper in the wild? They will experience being blown across rocks. They will experience being trodden upon. They will experience sand being blown over them, especially when we get farther into the Midwest. So some of plants would like to be what's called scarified. There's a lot of different forms of scarification. Being abrased by sand would be one example. Acid would be another one. So when a seed passes through the stomach of an animal and goes through the digestive system, that would be scarification. And then you can see the razor here where a seed is actually being nicked. And so some of them like to be just downright abused in order to get that seed coat open and receptive to be filled with water. So when we are doing our research, we have to consider what would bring the highest germination rate of this particular plant. And so you don't have to get crazy complex, but if you're trying to increase your chances, these are some really good ways that you can do that. In the bottom right, that's a glass of water that was really, really, really hot and then let to stay and soak the seeds for 24 hours at room temperature afterwards, another form of scarification. Some plants like to experience fire in order to germinate, and so that's an alternative to lighting your seeds on fire. That's one way around that. There in the jug, that's going to be more of an example of stratification. That's a word that is getting a little bit more popular right now. Stratification, especially cold moist stratification, is what we think about when we let our plants go to seed in the winter and experience the freeze thaw cycle, which breaks down chemical inhibitors and softens that seeds, allowing the water to penetrate in there. So that can be done by sowing the seeds right outside, letting nature do its thing, or we're able to mimic that process by bringing it into a container like this jug here. That's winter sowing. You just put it into some soil there in the bottom of a jug that has drainage holes, get the greenhouse effect. That's nice because once the plants sprout, you can set them here and there wherever you would like just by gently pulling them apart, called pricking. Or you can take them inside, and once you know how long they need to experience winter, you're able to do that in your refrigerator as long as you have a sterile, meaning non-fertile environment. You can use vermiculite. That's a very helpful substance. And it's nice because it does tend to protect the little itsy bitsy root hairs that develop if you do end up spreading your seeds. Typically though, you want to make sure that your seeds are taken out before sprouting happens, because once that sprouting happens, you have a whole lot of orphans on your hands that you have to be extremely fragile, delicate with. So that's why you want to do your research, know how long they should be in there, check on them every once in a while. An alternative is to use a paper towel or a coffee filter. So again, this is just really general. I could talk about this for days. I'm just trying to give you some kind of new ways of thinking. There's 100 ways to skin a cat, they say. Not a fan of the saying, but it kind of gets my point across. We're just trying to increase our germination chances at this point. So keep a journal. Make sure that you write down how many days you have until that plant should be ready to sow. Fill out your calendar and check on them, once every 2 weeks to make sure that they are neither too wet nor too dry. And you're going to notice when you're doing your research that seeds germinate in a multiple of different conditions. So I'm just going to breeze through some of these conditions. Stop me if I'm going too fast or if I'm not making any sense. I just want to give you an idea of the different experiences that our plants have out in the wild and what sets them what gets them excited to bloom. So some seeds will just germinate upon experiencing warm soil for a period of time, usually 10 days or more at 50 degrees or above. This is going to be purple coneflower, buttonbush, sneezeweed, St. John's wort. Some of these plants do perfectly fine just by being tossed in soil and being exposed to warmth. No pre-treatment necessary. That's nice, really a lot of them. A lot of seeds are going to need that cold, moist stratification periods, anywhere from 10 days to 90 days. I've even seen 120, depending on the species. You have to think of where the plant grows in the wild and how long it might need that period and experience it naturally. For example, a plant that grows in the shade is going to experience a lot more of a cold period than one that grows in full sun. Am I good to keep going? I'm almost done. Yeah? I can't tell if anybody's talking. Okay. It gets kind of tricky too. If you are trying to grow, let's say a woodland plant, woodland plants are a little bit tricky. Jack in the pulpit, hepatica, trout lily, Solomon seal, wild ginger. So they need what's called a double dormancy, which means that they need a cold, moist period, followed by a warm, moist period, followed by a second most moist period. That's 2 years. So I recommend sowing a lot of those seeds and not having all your eggs in one basket, because if a seed ever dries out, for any period of time, its metabolism has come to a cranking stop and it is unable to restart. So it's very important that your seeds stay moist. And here you've got a whole 2 years to be a good mom or dad. So definitely try a lot of different things, a lot of different locations. Keep a special area in your fridge, check on them often. But again, that's what they experience out in the wild. And some of these plants, that's why it's so special to see them, because it took them a really long time. I think trout lily takes 4 or 5 years to form its first flower. Correct me if I'm wrong. So you have a lot of plants that need a double dormancy. Some of them, like the pawpaw, I see pawpaw flying up in the chat every once in a while. Pawpaw, American bittersweet, Solomon seal, some have to stay wet. They have to stay moist. They dry out, they're no longer viable. And so that's important when you're thinking about, oh, I'm just going to buy a bag of pawpaw seeds on eBay. Like, go for it, because they're so big, they can hold moisture for a long time. So it's always worth a shot, but your highest chance of germination is going to be, in a lot of cases, if the seed has stayed wet and fresh for a while. So some of the examples of the plants that need to be scarred in order to increase your germination rate is going to be some familiar names like Baptisia. Baptisia is really easy to grow. It's pretty excited. Huh? Oh, I thought I heard something. So the Baptisia is pretty easy to grow, even for beginners. It's a beginner's favorite. But if you are trying to grow a whole lot of them, just to make sure that you are successful, again, you want to keep your plants in kind of different locations, different settings, just to make sure that if something happens, it doesn't happen to all of them at once. But Baptisia is good to be scarred. Lupine likes to experience an abrasion. A lot of times you can just put it in a bag with sandpaper and kind of rub them. Eastern redbud likes to be scarred. Groundnut, Apios americana, not a very common plant, but a really super cool one. New Jersey tea. And again, you could use really hot water in lieu of some scarring as well. Moving right along, if you go to the next slide, Jessica, just real quick, I'm showing you some of the different ways that you can start these seeds. There's a lot of different ways. Shown here is just a couple examples of upcycling. And in the top right corner, you'll see the Jiffy pods or whatever they're called. So there's a lot of ways that you can get these plants going. If we go to the next slide, I'll show you a couple of my favorite methods. It's not pretty, but it's still cool. If you want to zoom in there, you'll kind of see some different examples. I like to sow in flats. So I'll take what I feel is a good number of seeds depending on their size, and I'll sow them in a large flat that's about, I don't know, 2.5 or 3 inches tall. And all of the plants will come up, and I will take each plant individually once the leaves are formed and it's still really, really small so that the roots aren't all attached. And I'll just tease them apart and I'll set them in separate pots. So in this picture, you can see that some pots are massively populated, and then you can see some of these flats and some of the other pots where the individual plants are set apart. My way of doing things is a little bit tedious, but I am super limited on storage and time. So I find that this works for me, but there's a lot of ways to do it. All you want to think about is when you're letting your plants grow, you don't want them to get too big because the roots will get tangled, but you can also just take their second set of leaves, holding on to them very, very delicately using a pencil just to separate the roots, and you can plant them individually. So you can have in one afternoon of work easily 300, 400 or more plants just by this process. If that's too tedious and you only want a few, other gardeners like vegetable gardeners will often just cut down and leave the strongest. So that's an option as well. The seed sowing itself is done based on the size of the seed. So the general rule of thumb is you plant it no deeper than the seed is wide. So a bean, like a black bean, will go down pretty deep, and you'd want to cover it up with like half an inch of soil or something. But a lot of our native plants are itty bitty tiny, and if you sneeze, they're all gone. Or if you inhale, you've inhaled all of the seeds. Like some of them are very tiny. In that case, you would just sow across the surface and take your dry and just tamp, and leave them there like that. Because of this, I recommend watering from the bottom of the tray. So if you have a tray with holes in it, place it in a tray without holes in it. That tray would have water in it through capillary action. That way you're not blasting the seeds from overhead, displacing soil, blasting the seeds in every which direction, in which case they will all sprout on the outside of the pod. It's a real mess. So bottom watering is a very, very extremely useful tool when you are propagating plants. Once your plants have sprouted, if you have a humidity dome on them, it's time to take them off. Especially once they're about an inch tall. You take that humidity dome off. You do that so that fungus is not encouraged. You also do that so that wind can actually hit the plants and make them stronger by contact. I like to pet my plants, so that's an option too. You can pet them, and that'll stimulate their roots to make them stronger too. And lastly, your seedling care. Again, you want to make sure that they're not being overly, that they're not being kept in a humidity dome, but you want to also make sure that they are not being in full blown sun all day. A little bit of the sun goes a long way, so they can develop what's called cutin in their leaves, which makes them resilient against the sun, but that takes time because they're just wee little babies. And you want to make sure that they are experiencing wind or some other kind of contact to strengthen their roots. Don't let them grow too close together unless you plan on maybe terminating one of them at one point after you've seen which one is stronger. I'm a real sucker for letting everything live, which is why I spend all of my free time pricking just thousands of plants. I mean, one packet of seeds has 500 to 1,000 or more seeds in it. And if you do these methods that I mentioned previously, you might germinate all of them. And then you have many babies, and you have to kind of have a plan in place, space ready, everything ready to take care of these babies, or a lot of interested friends like we have here in this group. So that's it in a nutshell. I hope I made sense. I can't see my face on the screen, so I'm sorry if I'm talking in circles here. Does anybody have any questions before we close these slides out?
Hey, Danielle, we had one question from the chat. Do you have any recommendations for references where people can get specific germination requirements?
Yeah, so I have a lot of books, like a real kind of ridiculous amount of books, and I like to cross-reference all of mine. But when you order from this company, and I don't normally like to drop company names, but they're very educational. So when you order seeds from Prairie Moon Nursery, they give you booklets of this information. So it's nice to have kind of a touching stone. And then you can at least so that you have something to cross-reference. So on their website, Prairie Moon Nursery, if you type in like germination code or pre-treatment or anything like that, they'll pop up with like a document that you can kind of see the different methods, at least, so that you can kind of see what's out there. And then I like to have literature on hand, so I can actually maybe make a list of those books and I can provide them the next time that we meet.
That would, I think, Danielle, that would be really cool. Or we might even be able to include that in the chapter update email.
Oh yeah, that'd be even better. I'll
Cool.
make a note.
Well, just if I can add a counterpoint to this. I think to the uninitiated, all of the detail and specifics and tailoring each seed to a specific kind of germination regimen can be a bit overwhelming. My counterpoint is that a lot of the seed that I gave to Kate Palacki Sunday is already in the ground. She and her team went out to the Prairie Restoration Project in Oberlin and broadcast them and stomped them into the ground, and that's it. That is their method of taking seed and letting nature take its course, stomping to make sure there's good seed soil contact, and then letting it go from there. So
Right.
that's a really simple thing to do, but then they're doing 30 acres
Mhm.
all at once. They're doing a 30-acre restoration, so they're not going to nurture each individual seedling. So if you've got a big project, sometimes just putting the seed on the ground, stomping it as if you were a herd of buffalo, and letting things happen. And if you've got time, if time is on your side and you don't care if they all germinate at the same time, then that's another alternative.
Mhm. Well, and then it experiences that natural freeze thaw. That's exactly right.
Great. Any other questions?
I'm seeing some stuff in the chat here. Let's see. Yeah, so she dropped a link here as an example on the germination information that Prairie Moon will provide. And again, that's if you are trying to kind of control your situation or learn more about the plants. It's a really great way to learn more about your plants when you are up close and personal with them. And like Ray said, you could also just subject the plants to where they've been designed to experience for just since the beginning of their time.
Right, as a grower, you want everything to germinate within a couple of weeks. And everything happen all at once so that you can treat it in an industrial way, and just, you've got everything happening once and you know what you're doing with it, you've got a crop, then you have it to plant. But if you've got a fully natural landscape, it doesn't all happen at once. It doesn't need to.
All right. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for your presentation. And for those not familiar with Danielle, Danielle is so much more than a secretary. She's just been kind enough to offer her services as an official officer, as secretary. But for those of you not aware, she's very passionate about education. She teaches at LCC about native plants. She's a part of the Audubon Society. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of things, Danielle, but definitely so much more, and one of the original members of this chapter. So we really appreciate her willingness to help us and educate us on topics such as these. She's also going to be a very vital support and part of the learning committee. And like I said, has been very kind and generous with her time, with also being secretary on top of everything else. So thank you again. All right, so around town and open discussions. So just be courteous of time. Around town, one of the things we have started doing both in our monthly updates to the chapter through email as well as online. I want to make sure you guys are aware that on the Facebook page every month, within the first week, besides that email that you guys are seeing go out, there's a version of that on Facebook that is always going to be one of the featured posts that is going to have sort of a continuous list going on that starts as that point of time when we send out that one update for the month, but it's going to be an add-on as we hear about events, educational opportunities around town or with wild ones that will be there. So with that being said, especially more with the around town pieces, other than the I know that the seed bank has the one seed swap that'll be happening on the 28th at St. Patrick's. Anne, are you still on the line?
I think Anne had to step away.
Okay. So for those who are not aware, Anne has been coordinating efforts with a few other organizations and is hosting a 5-part virtual event. The first part already occurred, but the second one is happening. I apologize, I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but please check out the pages, or whether the email or the pages, for further information. This is a free event, so this is a really great event. Feel free to share it with friends and family. But I wanted to open this up as a discussion point to hear from you guys if you're hearing about any other events that you want to share with the group. And then on top of that, I do encourage you, if it is something that should be shared virtually, whether it's in person, virtually, anything like that, that you think would be great to share with the group, message us and we'll make sure we add that to those posts throughout the month, so that way we can share that with the community. So with that being said, any other upcoming events, especially in the next couple of weeks, I just want to make sure we give an opportunity to share that with the group. Ray, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Now I'm unmuted. I put out a pollinator news each month, and the one I just sent out yesterday has a couple of the webinars, including the one you mentioned that Anne is involved with. And there's so that's the one, Northeast Ohio Pollinator Society. I believe that's the one that is hers. There's also one that is coordinated, I think, by the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, Biodiversity in Our Gardens, that is also worthwhile, at a little bit different timeframe, but basically every other week, there's a 1 to 2 hour webinar that has a lot of really great information that's relevant to what we're doing. So if I can pitch my own pollinator news, let me know if you want to be on my mailing list.
No, thank you for that, Ray. And you know, the one thing that I just want to emphasize is we are community first, and we're very fortunate to be in an area that is very well established. And so, like I said, one of our goals as part of being a good neighbor and a part of the community effort is trying to make sure we're aware of these other events and activities, because there's no reason for us to retread the same ground if one of our partners or our community members is already doing something, because it frees us up to do other things and pull us together and work on more community activities. All right, so you know, I know we covered a lot of topics, but before we start to wrap up, I want to hear from you guys. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? You know, I would love to give us, 5 minutes or so of just a general open discussion. Want to hear from you guys.
Will there be a future seed swap coming up?
So we do not have as a chapter a scheduled seed swap. The Cleveland Seed Bank is having a overall around town seed swap. It is not just for native plants though. I do know vegetables and other things will be a part of that. We will see if we will be there. I can tell you we will not have a table, but we have been offered an opportunity to have informational pieces, but there is that seed swap. In the future, if we get enough volunteers for those type of activities, that is something we'd be happy to have. But right now we're still at that beginning stage, trying to see who's willing to volunteer for what before we schedule our own. However, if you or somebody else is willing to host one sooner than later, we're happy to coordinate that effort with you. Like Ray was kind enough to pull together a seed packaging event, which I believe we're possibly looking at scheduling a second one of those in March.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if we do that in March, and I hope we do, the deal is that everybody that comes to help gets a sampling of each kind of seed from that participation, from the work that we do at that time. And that would be one way. That's not exactly a seed swap, but it's certainly a way to get your hands on some seeds.
Now, out of curiosity, do you have seeds to swap and that's why you're asking, or are you just okay with getting free seeds?
Well, I don't have any yet because I just kind of gotten into this this past year. So no, I don't have any right now. But yes, I would love to have some.
Okay, great.
I
Hi,
know.
everybody. Sorry I'm late again. I have a conflict with Zoom meetings. I don't know what's going on with my camera, if it looks really red to you guys.
Yes, it
It
does.
looks like it's really, really hot in here, but it's not.
Craig, it looks
I'm
like
not
you've
sure
been
what
very
that's
careful
about.
Going for
lately.
that desert heat that Danielle was referring to, the 120
it's
degrees,
kinda-
your phone's about to start melting.
Kind of infrared there. I've never seen that happen before. But I just thought I would share with all of you that I had a preliminary discussion yesterday with a Buddhist temple in Cleveland who's looking to expand. And I suggested to them that it would be wonderful to find some vacant property in Cleveland to expand into and create a compassion for the earth garden based on native species. And that was very well received. So stay tuned and cross your fingers.
Great. Well, thank you for that heads up, Craig. And if there's anything we can do to help with that, please let us know. And thank you.
I did mention the wild ones as a potential ally in that effort, and they were open to that as well.
Great.
Thank you for doing that, Craig.
My pleasure.
Going back to seeds, I know it sounds like most everyone is up in Cleveland, but Summit Soil and Water has a partnership with Ohio Prairie Nursery, and they have a 10% off code for orders from OPN, which I know 10% isn't a lot, but if you're just getting started on buying seeds, you know, I feel like 10% could go a long way. So I'm going to stick that in the chat if anybody's interested in that too.
Yes, thank you, Janice. Appreciate that. And speaking of soil or that division, apologize, give me one moment. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. There was an update. Also the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District just posted today about a native plant sale. This is an online sale. They have options for seed packets, plant kits, trees, shrubs, roots. They all have different deadlines for shipping, but the seeds are all year round. And you can find that post from earlier today. Actually, I think that would have just gone out a couple of hours ago. So, you know, take a look at that as well. But, you know, if there's also a certain seed, I believe several of us might have some extra seeds. So it doesn't hurt to message us, and we may maybe put the word out if there's something specifically you're looking for, because I do know, you know, the winter sowing method is a very popular method this time of year. So perhaps we can get you started sooner with regards to that. And don't worry about the summit part, because the thing is, one thing to remember, for especially for our newer audience, while we are called Greater Cleveland Chapter, we're actually the Northeast Ohio overall for a coverage area. So, you know, we'll have people from Akron, Canton, you know, to Lorain County. You know, there's a variety in here, but you're right. I think a lot of our people are more Cuyahoga County based, and I think that's just more population and awareness as well. As we continue to grow and get more members, we'll spread out where we're having more of our activities, but we're also trying to to pull everything together.
I don't know if you guys are aware that there's a new native plant nursery starting in Euclid.
And the name?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
It's Meadow City. Meadow
It's
City.
Meadow.
Cities?
What is it? Meadow?
Meadow City Nursery. It's
Meadow
in
City,
Collinsville.
that's it. Yes. Julie Slater is who's starting it. And I'm happy to say that all her stock is locally collected seed.
Great.
And she just got a big infusion from a native plant nursery in Toledo that was doing really good work, but they're moving out of town, and she took all of their stock. So she is really beefed up in a hurry right now.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm sure many of our members will be happy to take some of those off our hands. Okay. Any other thoughts before we move on? There's one more topic I just want to revisit before we move to starting to end the meeting. All right, so I do know a few people joined late, and I just want to give the opportunity, because I know Craig and a few others are experienced in this area. But one of the earlier conversations was with regards to Earth Day, and we're looking for ideas for events, larger events that might be occurring. And we heard about the Medina Metro Parks, Lake Metro Parks having Earth Day festivals. The zoo was questionable from an experience from Ray's perspective. LCC may be having an Earth Day event, but Danielle's going to get back to us on that and how that would be. But do any latecomers or people that maybe had stepped away for a brief moment have any thoughts and ideas on Earth Day events that we may want to consider participating in?
I don't know about I just happened to look, but the Summit Metro Parks has one, it looks like, in Twinsburg. I have not been, I've been to that park, but I have not been to that event. So I don't know if it would be worth looking into.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. All right. So let me,
Can I ask a quick question?
sure.
Has there been any discussion about field trips?
Not specifically today. As a part of this survey results, we briefly talked about that. That was something that was very much of interest. Stephanie, do you want to highlight a few of the pieces from that was talked about earlier?
Sure. Can you maybe take us back to one of those slides?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the chapter member survey that we sent out a few weeks ago, we did get some really good responses, and I think it's the next one, Jessica, thank you. And in terms of when we ask people what activities or events would you like to see the chapter participate in or organize in 2023, field trips were one that came up multiple times. So folks were interested in getting some tours of native gardens, you know, sort of successful or established native gardens, maybe getting some tours of nurseries, hikes or walks in preserves and restored areas to see, you know, sort of native plants well, being native plants in their native environment. So yeah, there were a lot of ideas for some field trips. And as we kind of move into the rest of 2023, the leadership, the learning committee, and then just the leadership of the chapter, we're going to be looking at programming some of this so that we have some field trips in 2023.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so winding down, so just want to reiterate some of our calls to action. You know, obviously we're just, you know, re-pulling everything together. We have a lot of great ideas from the chapter, but we can't make a lot of that happen without volunteering. So like I said, obviously one of the big holes that we are looking to fill sooner than later is that treasurer position. So if you do know somebody with that accounting or bookkeeping experience, or you're just willing to, you know, sit down and learn what needs to happen as a part of that role, we'd love that extra help. So if you do, if you're willing to raise your hand with regards to that, please send an email or message us through Facebook. We'd love to have you and have that conversation around that. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking for other volunteers. Some of those earlier ones have to do with regards to project management, social media, website development. We're about to kick off our our learning committee. Steph is looking for a little bit of assistance to help her welcome new members or potential members, especially since she has a wedding coming up later this year. And obviously I think we have a lot of potential people here too, and that's only going to grow. So the more the merrier with regards to that. There's a lot of other ways you can volunteer. So like I said, please reach out. For those that did fill out the survey and raise their hands already, Steph is going to be coming around to you. She already mentioned she has to reach out to, I think, Shelly and one other person, I believe, sooner than later. But just please be also patient with us in some of those responses, because the leadership is working on that end of year reporting to national, and the priority is that has to be done by the end of this month. Second call to action, Facebook challenge. So as I mentioned, 87% of our members use Facebook on a regular basis, and that's higher than email, Instagram, everything else. So this is going to be our primary focus for communicating with our members or potential members, awareness, our missions, as well as some of our partners' activities. So we're asking you, since we had to rebuild our Facebook page, please take a moment, if you are on Facebook, and share our page with friends, family members, colleagues that may be interested in native plants or our mission. It just takes a moment. That's those 3 buttons that are the 3 little dots underneath our cover photo. You can click on invite friends. Appreciate your help in spreading the awareness of our chapter and our mission. And keep in mind, if you are doing it to a larger group of people, please don't do it to more than 50. Otherwise, Facebook will glitch out and or think you're spamming, and it will not let you finish sending that out, even though it looks like it does not. So please be aware, please do that. It would really help us out a lot. And then last but not least, invite a friend. And this is going to be a continuous one. You know, the more the merrier. Even if you're just coming here for education, it doesn't matter. We just want to spread the word. We want to help people. We want to keep them engaged. So whether it's to these meetings, to the page, just invite a friend. Steph, Danielle, is there anything I missed before I wrap up?
Nothing from me.
I just want to restate that we are officially launching the Learning Committee. We will be having educational bits at the end of our normal member meeting, but we will also be featuring seminars, webinars on the side. We are aiming to have a special speaker. Best case scenario, once a month, different speaker each month. But to get that started, we are really looking to have your input, generally from our crowd here. Steph's gonna try real hard to ringlead us here and pin down a possible couple days a month where we can meet for short meetings, so that we are meeting more frequently, but for shorter periods of time, just to check in with each other and keep that wheel rolling. She's going to be sending out in an email blast, a survey that we can just kind of highlight our best times, and then those results will generate automatically, and she'll be able to officially get that going. So if you are interested in joining the Learning Committee, that means a lot of different things. It means that you are involved as an educator, or someone who's just really eager to learn and has great ideas, or maybe you just happen to be somebody connected with a lot of people, and you know a guy, that sort of thing. So there's 100 different ways to be involved in that Learning Committee. Like Jessica mentioned, it is the core of what we will be doing with our mission, and as a result of member interest through that survey. So keep an eye out for that, and when you can, go ahead and let us know your availability, and we'll be able to work with that moving forward.
Yep. And one thing I also just want to emphasize, especially when you're offering to assist us in activities or a committee such as this, unless you're an officer, it's what time, well, even when it's an officer, it's what time you can commit. So an example, if you Learning Committee, might be a conflict, or even maybe this meeting, you always have conflicts. Maybe it's kids, maybe it's work, things like that. It's what time you can commit, and every little bit helps. So I just want to emphasize that. So trust me, we'll work with you. All right, so next meeting is February 16th. So for those not our prior calls or didn't get are not part of our email list yet, our goal is our monthly chapter meeting will always be the 3rd Thursday of every month. There could be an exception. Right now we do not foresee any exceptions, but put that on your calendar. We want to hear from you. We'd love for you guys to participate. And then just this page here, just we'll send this out with the meeting minutes as well. Just lists all of our Facebook page, Instagram, website, email. And for anybody that wants to join us, we have a join link, which is also on our Facebook page. Also, for those that want to join and haven't joined yet, please do not hesitate to either email us, message us, or just click on the link page. And no matter what, especially if you click on the join us part and you fill that out, you'll automatically get an email from Stephanie within a few days. So you'll be hearing from us no matter what. But if there's something you want to hear from us sooner or later, please reach out. We will make an effort to prioritize, because obviously we do have a lot going on. So very excited. Thank you guys for your time, and look forward to working with all of you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Another question real quick.
Oh, sure.
Are there any brochures?
I do have a brochure. I don't think it's one that can be shared electronically, but I do have some paper ones if you're, is it just for yourself? And
I'm giving a talk on the 3rd of February to a group of 23 mainstream landscape designers in Chagrin Falls that know nothing about native plants. So I'm hoping to educate the crowd.
no, that's great. It's a generic one. Eventually my goal is once we have the education committee up and running, that we'll create our own customized version, but I definitely have the national one. And what I can do is one of two things. I can, if you are, I'm not sure exactly where are you located, Craig?
Illyria.
Illyria. So I can, if you happen to be out in the area, I live in Berea. I can give you some of those brochures, but I don't know how many you need. So I do just have a limited number. But if you have access to a printer, what I can do is I might be able to get an electronic version and send it to you if you have the ability to print. Is that something that would work for you, or would you rather see maybe electronic slides instead? What's your thoughts?
I don't have a printer that could do that.
Okay.
I don't know if Ray might.
Well, how much, if you need paper versions, how many are you envisioning?
Oh, I don't know, maybe just 10 or so, just to
Oh,
kind of,
10, I easily have that many. So,
okay,
like, I have maybe 100, maybe closer to 200 or 300, but I wasn't quite sure, because I know sometimes depending on those speaking engagements and other things, people need a lot. So I just want to make
Okay.
sure I didn't, but I definitely have that. So I could either provide it to you.
could you mail it?
I'm sorry?
Could you mail it?
I don't think I have an easy way to mail it, but what I can do, if you're near Ray, I can see if he'd be willing to print them out for you, especially since
Okay.
it's only 10, and
right.
we can get that for you.
Okay,
Let me just, sorry, make a note here.
I sent you an email. Did you get it?
When did you email me?
It was shortly after the last meeting.
I got the one email letting, and if I didn't reply, I apologize. About the letting us use, I think, the photos.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I didn't reply. I am so sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Thank you.
No, I made a few suggestions too before that.
Oh
survey
no,
came
let's
out.
bring that up, because it's been a crazy month.
It's all right.
And,
I only
but
mentioned it to make sure that you got it. I wasn't
no,
sure I
I
sent it to the right
appreciate it. Let me
address.
just look it over to see if I have any quick questions since I have you on the line. So,
That's the first email I ever sent you. I wasn't sure I had the right address.
yeah. Oh, you know what, Craig, I don't think you were on the meeting for this. Let me share something with you, because you mentioned the weed ordinance thing. Wild Ones yesterday just posted a special native plant ordinance template to use for local cities, and to promote that. And I think that might go along with some of the your one comment.
Right, that's great. That's good
Yeah.
news.
No, it's fantastic. Are you on Facebook, Craig?
I am.
Okay, I just posted about it yesterday. But let me share my screen really quick. And yeah, we were lots of us were really excited about it. Okay. So yeah, it's a sample native planting ordinance, and it's a really great generic template. And it includes stuff like the, water gardens here. Let me stop sharing here and but the links are also in the post.
I can look that up.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
and then on top of it, it also has a webinar on like the weed police ordinance situations, but a lawyer wrote this up. And
Great.
so it's I think it's a really exciting resource to use. And one of the things we briefly touched on with regards to it is, as we get more volunteers and get past some of the initial event planning and education committee startups and things like that, we could possibly look at, creating a more organized effort around that, something like that.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah. I
So
don't want to hold you up. You're doing such a great job. I appreciate you and your service. And
well, thank you.
you've been on, put a lot of work into this, and I was late, so I don't want to hold you up.
No, thank you. And Craig, if there's something I've not gotten back to you, keep me honest, reach out. Sometimes it's just easier to talk about things, especially with so much going back and forth. But I apologize if I didn't at least do the initial reply, but thank you for bringing it up, because we want to make sure we're responding and bringing everyone's thoughts and ideas together. And did you fill out the survey as well?
I don't think I've done that. I think
Do
it's
me a
still on
favor,
my
Craig.
server.
Yes, please do me a favor. Prioritize that this week. Only because she's already accumulated the results. So I'll just tell her to look out for yours, because we want to make sure we pull in everyone's ideas, because that's the best way to pull in everyone's ideas for our 2023 planning session. So you saw some of the early results. Well, I should say early results, that those are pretty final, but every idea and thought counts, because we want to pull that in.
Right. I'll look for it as soon as we're off this call.
Okay, great. Thanks again, Craig. Have a
Thanks,
nice
Jessica.
day.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Keep up the
Bye.
good work.
Thanks.